And we have started and posted our tweet. And look at that. The magic has begun, and here we are. All right, Rob. We are ready to jet whenever you are, my
All
friend.
right. Intro music.
Wait, that's not it.
What? He's no good to me, Dad.
Intro music. Intro music.
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession.
Bounty hunting is a complicated thing, just like podcasting.
Yeah.
But we're still trying to do it.
That's all right. But when it comes to complicated professions, it always helps to have a professional on board. And
It does.
we are lucky enough today on Bantha Milk Podcast to have a professional bounty
We do.
hunter.
And we're not talking
on
about Nick
board.
or I. No,
No.
that guy that's turning around looking all over his shoulder for who we're talking about.
That guy right there.
That guy is the professional. We are very lucky and honored to be graced by the one and only Mark Anthony Austin. Even though if you're watching us live on YouTube, it just says Mark Austin. So
Yeah, you're credited as a couple different things. Mark Austin, Mark Anthony Austin. What do you like to go by here?
Well, that's the thing is that when they ask you, or if they ask you, what would you like on the credits? I always put my middle name down because when I left England, there was a very famous reporter, Mark Austin, on the BBC. If you Google Mark Austin, you'll probably get the reporter first.
Okay.
Because he's a worldwide journalist, you know?
Sure.
So if they ask you, I'd put Mark Anthony Austin. But for the longest time, I had two IMDb's. I had Mark Austin and Mark Anthony Austin. I was like, dudes, can you put these together?
Right.
I'm the same person.
It's
Can
the
we
same
just have
guy.
one? It took years to do, but finally they put everything together.
So there's like IMDb red tape you had to get through to merge those two together.
yeah.
All right.
Think of that, yeah. Astounding as that sounds.
Wow. That is great. Well, we are the Bantha Milk Podcast, as those of you who are listening probably understand and recognize. And we are here with Mark Anthony Austin, who is of Star Wars fame, right?
Yes.
You see he's wearing the man himself on his shirt right there. How do we come across this guy? Give a rap sheet here, Rob.
Well, okay. So we found out about Mark. I'm going to call you Mark because we're such good friends.
Cheers, Mark.
You know, we've known each other for so long. And I'm picking up a weird accent. I want to say maybe Southern or California, maybe. I wouldn't say English at all. But or am I wrong there?
I think it's English.
You think
man.
it's English?
I think he's probably from England, brother.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Well, so you're obviously you came from England. Did you start your career in England? Did you move to California to start your career or continue career? How did that happen?
Well, in England, my career was as a 2D animator.
Okay.
So I was 2D animator making commercials for England. And so if you were English, I would be able to drop a couple of names. You'd be, oh my God, I remember that commercial.
Sure.
But in the States, we didn't make any commercials. So my career was like the first 5 years were in the UK. And then the commercial company I was working for, the two guys had been going since the 50s. They were retiring. And so I was without a job for a couple of months until ILM called. And So it started in England and went to California pretty quickly after that.
Sure.
Okay, so when you first started at ILM, I know they filmed all the original movies over in England and stuff like that. So was there an ILM branch in England still active? And did you start working there, or you just hopped on a plane and flew over the pond and off to California you went?
Yeah, it was luckily, it was just by chance that a friend of mine went to an ILM lecture in London, in West End of London, which is like the theatre district of London.
Sure.
So he went to his big ILM buff. He would buy movies if ILM did the title, the opening credits. Like it didn't matter if they did the dinosaurs or whatever. Even if they did the credits, he would buy that movie. He was a big ILM nutter.
Okay, sure.
And so he went to see this lecture from the guys talking about how they did the Jurassic Park effects. And so very late at night, I guess when he'd already finished the lecture, gone out with these guys to a bar, gotten talking to them. At that point, he called me at home, and so I got a phone call really late saying, I'm at this bar with these ILM guys. I was like, oh, you must be in heaven, Steve. Great. And he goes, yeah, but they guess what? They're looking for animators. And I said, well, that's great and all, but unless they do 2D animation, I really haven't got anything to offer. No. they want to take 2D guys and train them in the computer because they need a whole crew for this movie Casper that they're going to be making. So he said, you should, I got their hotel phone number. Why don't you give them a call and say, would you like to see my portfolio and show reel? I've already kind of like said I know somebody, so they got a heads up. And so that's what literally I did. I called them at the hotel.
Nice.
Myself and said, could I visit you in your hotel in London and bring along my portfolio and VHS of my commercials I'd made? And that was my in.
Awesome.
Okay. Did you say you were they were looking for 2D animators for Casper?
Yeah.
All right.
That's why I made the trip. It was literally for a run of picture contract, which they estimated 18 months.
Okay.
So this is from January of 94 to July of 95.
Okay.
And, you have to go along to the embassy, and they gave me lots of names to drop, like, oh, Steven Spielberg's the producer. It's like,
right.
make sure you say that at the embassy, because that'll get you through a door quicker,
Sure.
Mention George Lucas owns the company. That'll get you through a door quicker.
Sure.
But that was why I came over, just for that. I thought for just an 18-month extended job, and then I thought I was going to be returning home, but I'm still here.
You're still here.
Well, we're glad you are, obviously. So why specifically were they looking for 2D animators to bring over into a 3D animation realm? I don't know a whole lot about animation, so it's just interesting to hear.
Yeah. Well, you have to think about what time this is. This is 1993. Sure. 1993, there aren't computer animators.
Right.
Now you go to a movie, you see an art, it just scrolls up and it's just animators, CG animators,
right.
It's different now. 1993, there were none. There were a handful that worked on Jurassic Park, but most of the animators back then had done special effects. So trying to give the sense of realism, like Terminator 2, when he walks out of the fire,
right.
They wanted it to look like a real person. When it was the water tentacle in the abyss, they wanted it to look like a real water tentacle.
Sure.
They wanted to, when they did Jurassic Park, they wanted dinosaurs to move realistically. So this was the first time that they'd ever kind of taken on a job where the client would like the animation to be respectful to the history, the Harvey cartoons, comic books, and cartoons of Casper. But they needed not just realistic movement, they needed a personality. So what I got pigeonholed into was a character animator.
Okay.
And, this is 1993. So where do we get 25, 30 character animators? They don't exist.
Right.
So the traditional method before had been computer guys learning animation. And so they thought the software is that user-friendly and that intuitive now. They could take a guy who already knows animation in 2D and just teach him the new tools and then set him off. And, we have a 3D animator in 10 weeks as opposed to like 3 years.
Right.
Okay.
So that's what they did. It was a grand experiment on the part of ILM. And a whole bunch of us got brought over just to train in Softimage, which was the computer software back then. It's now Maya, but back in that day, it was Softimage. And so, I luckily did the training, and during the training, we were doing improv classes, we were doing acting classes, we were doing, artistic development classes to kind of beef us up as artists in general. And during that time, I got asked if I would be the lead for Casper. And Phil Robinson got asked if he would lead the Ghostly Trio. So he had the much bigger job than I did in some ways, because he had 3 characters, but I had the lead character, so it all balanced out. And halfway through the movie, they scrapped these 2 supervisors and they divided everything that was left into sequences and made, I think, like 6 or 7 sequence supervisors. So my credit kind of got downsized a bit to sequence, one of 6 or 7 sequence supervisors, but originally it was the Casper character supervisor.
Sure.
But that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it.
I loved Casper when I'm a little younger than you are, Rob.
I did watch
when
it,
Casper came out. I loved it. I remember I got they had the McDonald's cups, like the mugs and stuff. I was super into it, man. My parents were collecting them. They swore they'd be worth something someday. So it's just really cool to have the. Oh, look at that! You got them right there behind you there.
He's got a Rick and Morty and a slave layer, but still, There's
There you
the
go.
Oh, that's
the cast
excellent.
that we got given as a crew.
That's awesome.
Wow, that's really, and so that's how you got your start at ILM.
Yeah.
And so from there, you said you had expected it to be 18 months, but obviously it lasted longer than that. And how did you manage? They said you did good work. We've got something else coming up. You free? Is that how it works?
They literally they let the cat out, or the wrong person let the cat out of the bag.
Okay.
I should have been officially spoken to by somebody, but instead I got sent to HR, and I thought I was going to HR to get my ticket home.
Sure.
And I'd already called my family and said, I'm coming back, and my mum was really pleased. And I went up to HR, and they said, okay, so we have you down as one of the animators on New Hope Special Edition. I went, really?
You're like, oh, okay.
That's good news.
But I have what about because I had to jump through hoops of fire to get this work visa. What about my work visa? They said, oh, we have you down here as full-time employee. Is that okay? Sure.
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 Sorry,
I'm
Mom.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I'll be
amen.
coming back for a while. But that was only for they said, well, it's going to be a 6-month gig, so you're going to be here until the turn of the next year. So okay,
Right.
And that's how I got extended.
Sure.
That's
So
awesome.
you went from Casper right into the special edition for Star Wars. That was the progression, and that's why we have you here,
yeah.
right? That's for us your greatest role, right? So you had a couple different responsibilities on that set, though, didn't you?
Well, everyone thinks that the blue screen shoot and doing the creature effects happened at the same time, but the blue screen shoot happened during Casper.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
Yeah, I made my friendship with Don Bees and had I wasn't allowed access to the archives, but because I had my knowing Don,
Right.
he just said, if you ever want to come back, bring a friend. I was like, are you serious? Because I will be back.
Yeah.
I will be back a lot, and I did. I made trips to the archives when anyone came into town, just an excuse to go back there and look at all the stuff and pick. It's like in a museum, except you can pick it up and look at it and go, oh my god,
Sure.
I'm on Travelocity right now, booking
right.
a flight. So
Yeah, let me know.
So as your friend, we'll be right
Bantha
over.
goes to the archives.
Yeah.
I wish I still had that in. But anyway, at the time, I got to know Don Bees. I was visiting the archives a lot. He knew I was completely obsessed with Boba Fett, and Boba Fett above anything else. It was very, very clear from the first time we met. And so fast forward a lot of details, but at one point he gave me a call and said that they're doing a summit to promote the re-release of the movies. He didn't mention anything about special editions. He just said the re-release of the movies. They're gonna re-release it theatrically for the new generation of fans. In other words, the kids of the fans.
It was me.
That
was. I mean, I was 10 years old when the original the remasters
The
came out.
remasters came out.
Yeah. So exactly for you and everyone with you, they wanted to hype up the originals, and so they held a summit, kind of invited all the people that had the license to sell Star Wars brand. And originally they were planning on having maybe, I think, like 12 volunteers. I was going to have maybe 10 stormtroopers and a Darth Vader, and that was it. And the original idea was that they'd have all the guys in the theater at Skywalker Sound, and then when they finished showing the new cuts of the trailers, the re-releases, that stormtroopers suddenly filed down the aisles. What's going on? It was all a surprise. And then Darth Vader, you hear the breath,
Sure.
and he comes out and he mentions something like, we'd be honored if you would join us, in some drinky poo afterwards.
Okay.
So that was the original idea. And so some bright spark decided to send an email to the entire ILM saying, who would like to be a stormtrooper? Well, you can imagine how many people responded.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It was in excess of 100, way in excess of 100. It was enough that they decided, wow, we could really do something a bit more adventurous here, a bit more, a bit bigger.
Sure.
So what they ended up doing was building the cantina, the Mos Eisley cantina, on one of the sound stages, with tables around it and places to sit, and they had proper drinks behind the bar. They had dry ice pumped everywhere, so there's smoke everywhere. They had stormtroopers checking IDs on the door. They still, I think, did that same thing. I think that happened because I was part of the cantina crew, but I think they still did that announcement in the theater. I think, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But eventually they end up into this bar, and my job was to, he said, there's a certain character that you would be interested in playing. So that's all he said.
I mean, the answer is always going to be yes anyway.
Yeah.
Well, he said there is, don't build your hopes up, he said. He said,
Okay.
if you don't fit the flight suit, it's a Swedish flight suit that everything attaches to.
Sure.
Underneath. If you don't fit the flight suit that everything attaches to, then we're going to have to find you another character. So come along one lunchtime. I think I went the very next lunchtime. Come along one lunchtime and try on the suit, and it's kind of like a Cinderella slipper thing.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
Just
So
fits
that's what
like
it
a
was.
glove.
It like a glove. It was.
How did it feel that first time suiting up in that Boba Fett armor?
See, I already thought as a Boba Fett fan, I already thought I'd hit the pinnacle of fanness by actually, touching and putting on the helmet and looking at the armor and touching one set, because they have enough pieces to make several suits because of breakages, stunts, etc.
Sure.
But I thought I've reached the pinnacle of it can't get any better than this. This is the armor, and it's not behind glass. I can pick it up.
That's it.
So when I got to wear that armor, that was like a whole nother.
Sure.
Wow,
Yeah.
it can't get any better than this.
Exactly. And then it did.
And then it did.
Right. That's right.
So yeah.
So okay, I'm just trying to live my life through your experiences right now.
Vicariously.
Yeah, vicariously through you. It's amazing. So then you're in the cantina, you're dressed as Boba Fett, you're hanging out, whatever. And then, you also did that scene, the blue screen scene. Was that after the cantina shoot then? Or after the cantina?
After the cantina shoot, this whole summit, which was 4 hours, is 4 hours basically practicing to wear the suit. And,
there you go.
And handle the gun, the blaster, and be comfortable in jetpack and all the pieces. So 4 hours is a decent chunk of time. Then they said, I guess everyone that came to the summit went back to their companies and said, "Oh my God, blah blah blah." So next thing I know, I had Don calling up saying, "Oh, would you be willing to do a second one?" It was so successful.
Oh, nice.
And they've kind of spoken to it to all their peers. All the execs now want to come. I guess the execs didn't want to go. They sent people to go. Oh, just go along and see what this is about.
Right.
But as soon as they heard, they wanted to go. So the execs weren't as big a fanboys. It wasn't as fun a summit because they weren't, true fans.
Yeah.
They were there
wasn't
to go,
people who are really there
is
for
enjoyable,
fun,
straight in their tie,
Right.
It wasn't as enjoyable, but that second one happened. So 8 hours in the suit.
Okay.
And then on the heels of that, I was working at my desk and someone came up. I guess I could say it's been that many years. I said at the time a little bird. But
Okay.
Carl Miller, thank you, Carl Miller. He came up to my desk and he's a cameraman at ILM. And he said, I heard they're going to do a blue screen shoot and put Boba Fett into this re-release. I was like, oh my God, really? That's awesome. He goes, well, why don't you just did those summits, so why don't you email the producer, Tom Kennedy, the ILM producer, and tell him that you conveniently fit the suit. You never know. You could even get asked to do it.
Yeah.
I was like, what am I going to say when he says, how do you know? You know, well, don't tell him I told you.
Right.
So that's why I wrote "A Little Bird Told Me," blah blah blah, and the first reaction was anger.
Oh wow.
Okay.
Like how can this get out? This is, you know, they're want everything kind of tight on
Yeah.
information and security leaks and stuff like that. So it's like, how did you know? Blah blah blah. And I said, oh, well, I promised I wouldn't say. And that was that. And I thought, oh shoot, well,
there goes that.
Misfired.
Yeah.
Maybe they misfired. And then 2 weeks after that, Steve Williams, Spaz Williams, came up. He was like the hot. He was the animator. He was like the head honcho.
Okay.
He was at the time supervising The Mask, Jim Carrey's The Mask.
Oh, great.
So he comes up to my desk and he said, yeah, they're going to go ahead and do it. And I'm animating Jabba, but I hear that you're going to be in the suit. I was like, really? And so all I had was his word on it. I didn't know whether I could tell anyone. I didn't know if it was true. There's nothing official. And so it was I had a lot of frustrating kind of, you know, just waiting from 1994 to 1997 for the release was the longest 2 years.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Longest. Because all I had was just my immediate friends that were there to believe that this story was real.
Sure.
So, but anyway, then I got a call from Tom Kennedy and saying, you know, if you would be willing, we'd love to do the shoot. It's on December 6th. You're going to have to get permission from your production, the Casper production, for the day off.
Okay, so this was during that Casper production.
This is during '94. So this is like, I felt at '94 I'd won the lottery because I was working for George, working on a movie where you actually get credited because commercials, there's no credits.
Sure.
I got to touch the suit, wear the suit, and now I was maybe going to wear it for a scene in the movie. It was like I'd won the lottery that year. So
they could probably sell tickets for that.
94 is my favorite number.
That's it.
94.
There you go. Yeah.
Docket Bay 94, 1994.
That's right.
Everything fit. And there's lots of other things that fit kind of coincidentally, like my dad's name. My dad's name Bob Allen, Bob A. Boba.
Boba, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's all kismet. It had to.
Everything kind of came together. Yeah, it was like a perfect storm.
It was meant to be.
And so, so that's how it happened. That I had to wait till, December 6th for the shoot, and then I put the same costume on I'd worn before, so I was familiar with it. They still hadn't swapped the shoulder bells, but I wasn't gonna say, hey, let's not shoot this.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna entertain any idea of postponing the shoot. I wanted to do it. So even though the mythosaur was on this side, don't worry, your cape will cover it up. It did.
Okay, it did.
Don't worry, your cape will cover it up, and it didn't. But that's how it happened.
The rest is history, as they say.
Yeah. So it's fun. I was thinking that this was reverse of the way you're saying it went down. I was thinking, you're working at ILM, you're working on the Star Wars, and then you're like, oh, I'm in charge of this scene with Boba and Han and all that stuff. And since I'm in charge of it, I'm going to throw myself in the shot back there. But this all happened preceding you even getting onto the movie set. So that's really cool.
And it just so happens that he was the perfect size.
Perfect size.
You are.
Yes.
Yeah. Boba size.
I mean, I don't know. Have you ever met Tamira Morrison, the guy who plays the Django and the Boba Fett now?
No.
I'm wondering if you're around the same size, if how close to that becomes.
I mean, me and Jeremy were the same height.
Sure.
He was a bit shorter, but I guess he was older, so I'm getting shorter over the years.
I get it.
But we were similar size, and when I stand next to Dickie Beer, he's similar size, and the only one that isn't is Daniel.
Yeah,
he's baby fat, so it doesn't matter.
So that doesn't matter, right? So as in your stories, you're talking about all these guys from ILM and stuff like that, and you have a Netflix mug there. On Netflix right now, they have a show, The Movies That Made Us, and they did a whole thing on Jurassic Park. I don't know if you watched it or not or know anything about it, but they follow Steve Spaz all over the place in this documentary. So it was fun you being like, "Oh, Spaz," and I'm like, "Wait, that name sounds familiar."
Sure.
And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I remember watching him all on that Movies That Made Us thing." So that was really cool that you know, you're right there with him during this whole time and all that fun stuff. So for us as fanboys, you shouting out all these names and you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, I talked to George and I did that and blah blah blah." We're like, "Oh, like this is
Yeah.
like amazing." So
You know, you mentioned Jurassic Park a lot. It does seem like Jurassic Park was sort of like a shatter point in animation. Something seems like it shifted at Jurassic Park. So is that the facts? Was Jurassic Park sort of like a watershed moment for animation in movies?
I think Jurassic Park just opened the Pandora's box to what was possible with
Okay.
computer animation. You know, because inherently before CG, you'd have the stop motion guys, Ray
Sure.
Harryhausen. He essentially has a wire armature that he moves frame by frame, and it gives the illusion that the creature is alive.
Right.
And so Spaz was like, well, we can make that equivalent in the computer, but I have way more control over it, because we can go
Right.
forward, we can go backwards, we can wait till we're happy with it, and then we can render it. So we can perfect anything we like, so we can make a dinosaur skeleton walk and then throw on the skin and make it appear that the skin is attached to those bones.
Sure.
And there's going to be a relationship between what that bone does and what the outside skin does, and each bone has a certain amount of influence. And he was the genius that thought that up. And so a lot of people were disappointed, like Stan Winston, obviously, because that meant a lot of his work would be kind of under the
push
realm of all this, so the CG
Sure.
animators to do. But then at the same time, they thought, well, we could actually attach anything to these bones and make anything come alive, even cartoon characters, even ghosts. So it kind of it turned the switch.
Sure.
And you can argue whether that switch got taken too far, which it did in the 2000s. And luckily, we've just realized that, hey, maybe we need a good amalgamation of both. Let's use the CG where we need it and use the practical where it's better at, and make movies that feel a lot more real, because they've got the right balance between the two.
Yeah.
And that's somewhere where I feel like some of the more recent Star Wars is doing well. And I don't know how much you've watched The Mandalorian. I don't know how much you've watched some of the newer stuff, but I feel like they're finding a balance between that CG and the practical effects. Whatever you feel about the story of the new Star Wars movies and the direction of the movies, they really are finding this balance between the two that I think is really cool.
Yeah, that's why I say in some of the podcasts, I say, regardless of what you feel about the story, it looks much better than the prequels. Prequels, if I could say something good came out of the prequels, it was the fact that we realized that we can overdo it with CG.
Sure.
And that doesn't go for just the viewing audience, it goes for the actors on the set. Ewan McGregor, bored crapless, because he's standing on a green screen with a green rod and everything's green. I always mention from Hook, Tinkerbell, Julia Roberts.
Julia Roberts, I love that. That was one of my favorite movies.
But following her filming that, she vowed never, ever, ever to do anything like that again, because she didn't see another actor for the whole 4 months she was shooting or something.
Yeah, she was just
on her
own.
Well,
and then they were just like looking at a dot the whole time.
I read
pretending
similar things about Ian McKellen when he was filming The Hobbit. There was so much CG put into the Hobbit series, and he was, Gandalf, so he was this big. And I heard stories, and Lord knows if it's true, but I've heard enough stories that I'd imagine it's probably true, that at some point he just got so frustrated at being just surrounded by nothing and having to act towards nothing, because actors feed off each other. There's that thing that happens with acting where you feel each other, you get the emotions from each other. So I get that totally.
Yeah. Whenever I've done any scenes with, I've done acting classes and acting school and stuff like that, and whenever I've done any scenes with another person, the dynamic, you have to listen more, because you have to play off how they intonate their lines.
Right.
Very important to listen rather than just regurgitate your lines when the opportunity comes up.
Right.
But you feel like there's someone with you, and the two of you can make it work. And when you're on your own on a blue screen set, you by yourself, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes, you're listening to somebody talking off stage, but, they're not where the sound is supposed to be coming from.
Yeah.
So it can be really weird. George Lucas and I, we go way back. We hang out all the time and all that stuff. And I told him, I've never met the man like you have. But I feel like what you were saying with the prequels was, it was almost like he finally had all this technology at his hands that he wanted to use it so much and make everything look so cool, and even when you guys digitally remastered A New Hope, he put in all those little extra things. And I feel that was good. Like in the cutscenes when there's extra, like Bantha's walking by that you couldn't animate, or stop motion or whatever. In my opinion, I think it added to the movie. But then when you see the prequels that are just so overly CGI'd, it was like he was so excited that he could finally do all this stuff. It was almost like the line in Jurassic Park. You didn't think whether or not you should do it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And now, like you said, the latest movies, they've now been able to combine everything together. So you have CGI, you have real stuff. And it, like you said, it totally looks so much better now.
So how did you strike that balance on the special editions, right? Because you definitely, I'm sure that's something, you had all this new technology at your hands, right? So what was your approach when you were going into the special effects and the animation for the special edition?
Well, I don't think we did strike the balance on the special editions because I think that was his testing ground.
Okay.
For the prequels.
Sure.
I totally believe that because we were trying out some ideas.
Okay.
Like if the Ronto. I say this a lot, but the Ronto, if you take away the skin, it's the brachiosaur.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they took the brachiosaur skeleton, and they just took the skin off, and they put the Ronto. They designed a Ronto around the brachiosaur CG skeleton, and the scurriers are velociraptors.
Okay.
The ones that run out of the way of the
the little guys.
Yeah. The velociraptors. So he had this idea that he wanted to pursue, which was the kind of recycling of computer animation, or kind of reusing. In other words, you can. I always use this as an example, but you animate one step droid, and then you copy it to 1,000 others, and then you have a whole army of step droids.
Right.
But it's one piece of animation.
Yeah.
Sure. And so for him, it was like, whoa, the possibilities,
Sure.
So I think we were the testing ground for that. And I was always arguing, why aren't we getting the Jabba puppet out of the archives? I don't think I never did see it in the archives. I think it might have deteriorated to the point because of all the latex and stuff.
Yeah.
But I couldn't understand why why that worked so well and why we were struggling with this computer version. And Steve asked me to come down to the pit. The pit was his den.
Okay.
Him and his little buddies were. It's a kind of a little dungeon. And so I went along to the pit, and he said, Mark, you couldn't help me with this lip sync, could you? I said, I'm not touching that hideous thing. I'll give you some pointers on what I can critique it, but I'm not touching it. I'm not touching that thing. I have all the other creatures to do. So anyway, I didn't want another one. And I didn't understand why they were pursuing something that it already did look like it didn't work.
Sure.
From the get-go. And so I originally, when I got hired for New Hope, there was never going to be an Empire Special Edition or Jedi.
Okay.
They literally just beef it up number 4 so that when they did these digital 1, 2, and 3, it wouldn't suddenly drop to 1970s optical effects with wire wings blowing up with pink flames. That kind of stuff annoyed George.
Sure.
The limitations of blue screen kind of irked George a bit.
Okay.
Right? So he lived with the pink flames for the wire wings, but he really wished they were yellow, like flame colored again.
Yeah.
And so we originally were just going to bump up New Hope to kind of bridge that gap a little bit.
Sure, almost
But,
like an advertising campaign for the new. Like this is the technology we've got. Wait till you see what's coming next, sort of a thing.
almost. But if you're going to watch them in order, there wouldn't be a sudden change
Right.
in the look or the
Sure.
how developed the effects were.
Sure, yeah.
So I always thought that he was getting us to experiment with how far he could push the CG effects. A lot of the CG effects are invisible to the public because when he went into the desert and shot those sand troopers,
Sure.
or actually most of the shots in New Hope and the other two, he stretched a pantyhose over the end of the camera. Reason being that you have a slight gauze and you shoot through, it knocks back details like Phillips screwdriver heads,
Okay.
things like that. So it dampens down the effects. So things are more believable. All the costumes suddenly become a bit more believable because you can't see there's a paint mark. It's not a real scratch, but a paint of silver line, So we had to make a computer pantyhose filter for all of our pristine,
all your perfect
clean,
shots.
all
Yeah.
the perfect shots, all crystal clear. We had to knock them back with this pantyhose filter to match the original
goodness.
optical.
So you're saying whenever I'm
race.
seeing a sand trooper in A New Hope, I'm looking through pantyhose. I love it, man. That's just some good Star Wars information to have right there. That's a good bit of Star Wars trivia.
Oh my
I love
goodness,
it.
that's
See,
crazy.
This is it. We've got an insider with inside information.
I know.
We would have gone to our graves without that.
Without knowing these things, without knowing
That's
these.
excellent. Man.
I'm going to jump around just a little bit, but staying with your Star Wars, jumping back to when you were on the blue screen being Boba Fett, just for one silly little question. So when you were there in that shot, there's a whole bunch of actually two questions. There's a whole bunch of other bounty hunters, I guess you would call them. They look like guys just in like robes and stuff like that. Were all those guys on the same set at the same time, or were they all filmed separately? And were they other ILM people, or were they just extras and stand-ins and stuff like that?
They were already in the 1976 footage.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
So the only person missing was the guy in the bearskins.
Okay.
I got you.
But all those other guys were on the original set.
They
so
were already on there.
I was just like Julia Roberts. I was on my own.
You were on your
Right.
own.
Blue screen.
Okay.
They had a piece of tape on the rear wall of the rear blue screen wall to show where if I was following Han Solo up the ramp, that would be the last point at which his eye line would have been.
Okay.
Okay.
So I had something to look at for my
Okay.
exit. They wanted me to check, make sure that everything was clear and then exit, but they always kind of conscious of the top of the ramp of
Right.
the Falcon.
Okay. Very
Now,
cool.
in that scene, obviously, like if you can go on YouTube and find all these like extras, and I think it might have been in the Star Wars the Empire of Dreams documentary. I forget, but that scene was originally shot with just kind of this big Dom DeLuise kind of looking fella, right? And y'all digitally placed Jabba on top of him. Was that one of your projects that you had to deal with?
No.
Okay.
Because my job was, even when I was doing the Rontos, I'd animate the Ronto in front of the plate, but it would be someone else's job to put the Ronto into the plate and comp it in. So
Okay.
Steve Williams was doing the Jabba animation and sending it to someone to put into the plate. And they put Jabba into the plate and they had Han walking around.
Right.
And it was looking okay.
Right.
It was looking okay, better than it ended up. Because then someone, I don't remember who said it. But then someone said, "What about Jabba's tail?" And I was like, "No, that doesn't matter. It's movie magic. It's movie magic.
Right.
Yeah.
Why?
Seems like George would care about that.
Uh-huh.
George would care about that
Yes.
specific detail.
Plant the seed. You plant
Yeah.
the seed. What are you doing? And because it happened on another shot, a Ronto shot that I did, that it kind of blew up into this big fiasco. But someone mentioned the tail, and sure enough, they went down that route where they were comping, but also animating in the vertical.
Yeah.
Like he was
Moving-
it just was
moving Hans. Yeah.
horrible.
You,
And it's a
you didn't
shame-
have your hands in that decision. You had no choice in that matter.
And
I was in charge of creatures, so everything that wasn't Jabba was my responsibility.
Awesome.
The Banthas, so what are the lizard creatures?
Dewbacks.
Dewbacks,
That's
what I
what
was
was
thinking,
the
right.
Dewbacks, yeah.
Fake stormtroopers, fake Jawas, droids, and speeders.
Okay,
So
great.
I had
Oh,
all
and
mine.
in that whole Mos Eisley entrance, they've got all those speeders and the Ronto and all right. So that's all you. We can put a face.
There
to
we
the
go.
name
Yeah,
which
now
will
we
be
know who
watched.
did all that.
Rock on.
And I mean, I love that scene, like just seeing it because. So I was born in '73. I don't remember seeing A New Hope originally in the movie theater, but I think I had it on VHS and all that stuff. So then when it came out in '97, I like seeing the differences between what I remember seeing on VHS versus the digitally remastered and special
Sure.
edition and all that stuff. So it was fun for me, especially seeing all those little cutscenes, because it's like these are the scenes that you knew George wished he could have put in '77, but he didn't have the technology, the time, and the money to add all these extra scenes. So it was cool that you guys were able to add all of them in there. How much do you listen to? I don't know if you know this or not, but Star Wars fans are very cynical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after you're done doing all this, and you guys are so proud of all the work that you did, minus Han Solo moving up and down over Jabba's tail, all that stuff, and then people are so cynical. It drives me critical. Yeah, very critical. Did you guys, were you guys like, what the heck? Like, we did all this, we tried our best, we did this, and you're not happy? Like, was it frustrating to you, or were you just like, whatever?
I'll tell you what the frustrating part was. It was because they called it a special edition.
Right.
And so from the very, very, very beginning that I heard about it, it was called A New Hope Special Edition. So just the word special edition suggests it's a version, optional version,
Right.
doesn't it? I mean, why would you call it a special edition if it wasn't special or wasn't an edition?
Yeah.
So I always say that I think George did himself a disservice by pretending the originals never happened.
Right.
He should have had two versions.
Yeah.
1977 and the 1997.
Sure.
And the two should have coexisted. The fact that he got rid of the original is where I get the hate then.
Okay.
Because then everyone says, well, the special edition is now the definitive edition. It's like,
Yeah.
well, when did that happen? Why did they ever call it a special edition? Unless it was a marketing thing to get people to come to the theaters. But quite special, then all the original fans might come in to see what makes it so special. But I think the disservice was done in George rejecting what he had done in 1977 as being not as good as, when it was as good as for different reasons.
Sure, yeah.
There were things I hate about the special edition, and I worked on it. I hate the fact that they messed with Greedo's scene.
Sure.
I hate the fact that they forced me to do that whole Ronto rearing shot. But I also say that I feel the fans don't realize how lucky they were that a fan, me being a big fan, actually got to do a lot of the work, because there were a lot of people at ILM that didn't give a shit about Star Wars.
Sure.
The guy that did the modeling for me didn't give a shit about Star Wars. He didn't care about it. Didn't interest him. I was like, why are you working here?
Yeah.
Why are you working here?
Yeah, you could be working anywhere. You're an ILM.
Yeah.
Like this is there's a million Star Wars fans out there that would die to have that modeling job.
But we've learned that in the past couple of years with like Dave Filoni. You know, you get like a guy like Dave Filoni who's a fan, who's in charge of things, and the fans, they care. They want a product that they're going to be happy with because it's something that they care about. So you're 100% right. Like having someone, and it's maybe like a fan like me who's not really like plugged into how important animating is, might not realize how important it is to have a fan at the helm in that situation, but it is, right? Because it's about pride in your work, and when you have a pride in your work and you really want to see the franchise succeed, and that's why we thank you, Mark. I mean, like we are fans, some of us know.
But the other thing is that it was funny that they were pointing at me, like they hated me for the fact that this movie existed, like I had a say in it.
Right, yeah.
The internet.
Like, I had, like, it was, I think we need to make a special edition.
Yeah.
And I forced George to make it.
Right.
Okay, I'll make it. Like, that was me.
That reminds me, I'm sure you've seen the newer movies and have seen all the drama with like Rose Tico. who I think did a great job in the movies. I think everyone did a great job in the sequel trilogy. I'm not 100% satisfied with the direction it went or the planning of it, but I'm a Star Wars fan, and if it's a Star Wars product, I'm gonna like it. But you see how people treated Rose Tico, and it's like, do you think she wrote her part? Like, how much creative license do you think she had over this? It's Disney.
She wasn't going there and saying, no, write me a smaller part.
Yeah.
Make my part less meaningful. This is what I want you to do.
Okay, but say she did say, I hate the way this is written, I refuse to do it. They would have hired somebody else.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's like it's how can you blame her for doing what she was told to do? And plus, when you're making a movie, you really invest in a lot of faith into your director,
right?
Yeah,
to take that footage you've contributed to and make it into something great. It's a movie isn't made by one person,
right?
It isn't one person. One person can opt to make it, like Rick McCallum and George probably got together and thought, let's make special editions. But it takes an army of people to make it, and so you really don't know until you see that movie finished what that movie is going to even look like.
Right. Exactly.
Like everyone thinks you have prior knowledge of what the end result's going to be.
Sure.
Yeah.
And as a musician, I think about it often too, because I'm a big fan of John Williams. You can't be a Star Wars fan without being a fan of John Williams. And I'm a music teacher, so I teach in my class about they get this blank slate essentially, and they're like, all right, now you got to write the music for it. So it's that same thing. Like I look at this scene where Kylo Ren is like brooding, and it's like all this like space with this great music behind it, but he didn't know that great music would be behind it when he was
acting it. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're right. It does take this whole village to create this one masterpiece.
Actually, if you ever stand and watch a film being shot, doesn't matter if it's the Avengers, whatever it is, it looks boring.
Yeah.
Because there's no sound effects.
Yeah.
It's like action, blah, 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 blah. And that's it. There's no explosions.
Yeah.
Right. There's no music. There's no, there's nothing else.
And
even noises of traffic.
Yeah.
They want to capture the voice, and that's all they want to capture.
That's
the
all they
voice want. And the action is in front of the camera, and nothing else exists. But when you watch that in isolation, it's very boring.
Sure.
So you even when you're filming scenes, you think, oh God, I hope that turned out okay, and then you just rely, like I said, on I had to wait till the Friday of that week, and then Steve came along to my desk and said, you have to come along and see the rushes. Sure. So he showed me actually the second shot where I came on and did the look around and walk off.
Right.
And oh my God, it looks like I was there. It was like uncanny.
Uncanny.
Because I'd been on a blue screen, and that's what I'd been,
Yeah.
And there I was in the movie. In the movie.
You're in Mos Eisley, man.
There's a Falcon. There's Chewie. It's like,
and there's you.
Yeah. Weird.
You're like, it's weird. When I was standing there, I didn't notice any of this stuff, but suddenly it's all there. I don't understand how it all got there. So that's awesome. Now, obviously, you don't need to do this, but have you done any? I mean, I know you're. I don't want to say your claim to fame, but you do promote the fact that you were Boba Fett in A New Hope, which is how we found you and how we got you here and all that stuff. So have you done like Comic-Cons and stuff like that and gone out as, Boba Fett? And are people like, I know I would be, and Nick and I have talked numerous times about how we want to be that guy in the background that's just there, like the ice cream machine running guy. Like we just want to be that one guy in the scene, because then we can go to Comic-Cons for the rest of our life and we're like, yeah, we were on set or on a blue screen or whatever, but yeah, that's us.
Yeah.
So do you do that a lot or just occasionally or whatever? How often do you do that?
Well, with the COVID and everything, it's changed.
Yeah,
right?
Sure. Yeah.
So before COVID, I was doing it a lot, and I luckily was working for a company where I said to them, is it cool if I, instead of take a big vacation, I pepper my vacation throughout the year to coincide with these long weekends?
Right.
And they were cool about it because I'm a pretty fast worker, and I was doing work that they thought was good. So that's how it was before COVID hit. When COVID hit, it came to stop.
Yeah.
I've only done one which was Nashville this year. I tested the water again at Nashville at the ICCC big toy convention.
Okay.
And I'm doing some next year. I'm booking for next year, but I've tried to keep this year pretty.
Was the Nashville one just recently?
Yeah, it was in April.
Okay, because we just. Oh no, okay. Because we just last month we interviewed John Jackson Miller, who's an author, Star Wars author, and he's on Facebook. You guys are friends, which means a lot because I have 500 friends on Facebook, so it means a lot to whatever. But he just did another one. I think he was in Memphis though, but I think he just did one in Memphis. So you were saying Nashville, so I got my states confused there. So apologize for that. But yes,
move on.
But yeah, so he just started one as well. Okay, so. Moving on, more about you. I'm looking at your bio on your page, markanthonyaustin.com. So anybody out there,
I need to rebuild that site. It's so old and clunky. And there's no Boba Fett on there.
There's no Boba Fett on here at all. Even in your biography, like I'm looking at your biography right now, talks about all your movies and stuff, but nothing about Boba Fett. So you did. You worked at Disney then after ILM or before ILM?
Yeah.
Okay, so after ILM, then you went over to Disney, and you worked on Mickey's Philharmonic, which was the 3D attraction at Disney World. That's awesome.
How magic!
Yeah,
right.
I'm sorry. Yes.
We're a part of a podcast family called Earz-up, and it's a Disney podcast family, and we've got a couple different podcasts here. So that's pretty.
Yeah.
That's
So
pretty rad.
they're really huge with all the Disney World, Disneyland stuff. So you worked on that. So that's really cool. So was that the big nighttime spectacular show? Is that what that is? Or was that
is a 3D so you go into a theater, and it was really weird because normally it's hard enough to animate in 2D.
Right.
3D which becomes 2D. So it's 3D characters, but ultimately you work to a camera.
Right.
But that show we had to make the characters come out from the screen, and as they got closer, they had to get bigger, because otherwise they shrink. So you have to give the illusion that it's going to go over the person. It was a very weird mind trip.
Oh,
and he had depth behind the camera as well. So I did, if you've ever seen the attraction, I did the tornado, the finale.
Oh, okay.
So when the finale hits, when the hat drops off of Aladdin's flying carpet, that point onwards was mine. So I know exactly. Mickey comes on, he ends up stopping everything, and
it is interesting when you say you did the tornado. Like my wife's friend is a animator, I think, at Pixar, and we always look for his name in the credits. And like you said, you see all these animators, and we talk about all these, like it takes a village. Like so many, you could take so many people, and it's like, oh, our dedicated job is the backgrounds. You know what I mean? Like the landscapes and stuff. So it is really cool, like how many layers there are to animation and how many variables are at play. And I'd imagine in 3D, when you're talking about actual like glasses 3D, they're even more.
Yeah, I've done since then. I've done more 3D shows, and 3D ones are all the demands of a regular show plus another whole layer. So it's like you said, you got to kind of wrap your head around the technology and kind of the illusion.
Yeah, and when you're like building it in 2D, you're like, okay, now this image is just taking up the whole screen, and I can see how it like plays with your mind, because you're like, no, I want to see beyond this, but it's because it's coming at you. That's why it feels so big and stuff when you're building it. So that's got to be a lot of fun though, especially when you see it at the end. Then you're like, yes, like just such a sigh of relief, and just like, this is so cool. I did all this. Chicken Little and then Bolt in Disney. So they were both fun movies.
Dinosaurs as well.
And Dinosaurs as well. Yes.
The first one.
Yeah. So they were all really, really cool. It's funny.
Treasure Planet.
Treasure Planet. Dinosaurs, Treasure Planet. Disney, Mickey.
And you said all the others.
Yeah. Yes, and I got all the other ones. Yes. So one of the dogs that we fostered looked just like Bolt to us, and we tried so hard to keep her. But all I want to do was like spray paint a little lightning bolt on her side, because she looked just like Bolt. So it's awesome that you were a part of that. And then you changed. Then you moved to a different Third Floor Incorporated.
Mhm.
So, and then after there, you moved somewhere else, and now you're at Bozo right now. Are you still at Bozo? According to
Now,
this, you're
Bosa
still...
was 2016.
Okay.
Then I went to MPC again.
Okay.
And then in 2020, the very beginning, I switched to Netflix.
Okay.
And so what are you working on now in Netflix?
I'm working on Ultraman. It's an anime animated feature, and they've announced it, so I'm allowed to say.
You're allowed to talk about it.
I'm allowed to say what it is. It's Ultraman. It's an animated feature.
Okay, and what's your role on that?
I'm still in my cinematography kind of. I left animation. I kind of migrated over to cinematography. Cinematography just basically, instead of working on individual shots,
right,
like I did on New Hope and like I did in the Disney movies, when Foxy Loxy comes on, Foxy Loxy is my character, so you have to animate that scene. But instead of animating the trees, cinematography is looking at the forest, and it's like looking at the whole sequence. It's like where you build the rises and the falls, and how are you going to tell the story, and how would you like that story to unfold in the sequence?
Right.
Okay.
When it comes to these large Hollywood movies that are expensive, I use Avengers, the first Avengers as an example. You can imagine that when they're shooting an Avengers scene, you imagine that all the people that are involved in shooting that scene, it's like an army. Converges. You've got the lighting, you've got all the gaffers, you've got the grips, you've got the cameramen, you've got all the stagehands, you got the actors, you got the director, producer, everyone's there on the stage, and it's expensive.
Yeah.
Every hour that all of those people are there, it makes it's a dollar value to that.
Yeah. Sure. Oh yeah.
And they have to budget for that. So very early on, I always call Previs the bastard child of Hollywood, because you will never find it on any DVD extras. It's almost like they don't want to admit it exists. But for Avengers, I would have a virtual set, and we did our homework. We actually contacted all of the buildings around the MetLife building, which was going to be Tony Stark's tower.
Right.
And we asked which of these buildings could we get roof access to. Okay. So just the buildings that said yes, we put our cameras on there and we shot all of that, all those flying aliens and
Sure, yeah.
Around. We basically did it on a virtual set. We had it was true to scale. It was made from Google Maps of downtown, and we have our virtual actors. But it costs whatever my hourly rate is, as opposed to how much it would cost for an army. Yeah. And so you can make that whole shot and also experiment on other ways to shoot it at the director's request, or the special effects supervisor's request. He can say, how about if we tried it for this? And basically when they're happy with the shot, when the director's happy with the shot, you give him not only a blueprint of what it's going to look like, but how high the camera is off of the floor, what lens is on the camera, the distance that the actor is or the subject is from the camera. You can give him all of that information so he can accurately reproduce what you've done on that virtual set in real life without any delay, because everyone's being paid by the hour. So he knows exactly what he's doing, and he can show the actors, this is exactly what you're going to do. Everyone's on the same page. And so Spielberg said that Previs saved him $8 million off of his budget for War of the Worlds.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And I can believe that, sincerely. I can believe that's how much it saved him, because he did all of that expensive trial and error with just a guy and a computer.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So it's just one person instead of an army of people trying it all out. Yeah, yeah. That's awesome.
So that's basically, I fell in love with the idea that I could have that much say in the design of a movie, and design not just a shot, but all these shots and how they fit together, where they cut. And that's what I'm doing presently for Ultraman. So I have a sequence they've given me. It's a big sequence, 3300. And there's a lot going on in it. And they choose the areas that are the most concern of how's this 2D storyboard going to translate into 3D and look dynamic? Or how can we plus it to make it even more dynamic?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's my job to do a version that, I work with the director, I show him a version. He gives his notes. I've got my notes all written down in my book.
All right.
I go through the shots, I make those changes, I edit it all together, I show him the new edit, and then once he approves it, then that gets shipped off to ILM. Make this, but make it look without, all the bells and whistles on it.
Right, exactly. That's awesome.
And do you know when can we expect Ultraman on Netflix? Do you have any idea?
I'm not sure because this is the difference between Netflix and Disney.
Right.
Disney will decide to greenlight a movie and they'll have a release date already set.
Right.
They'll know if it's summer of 2022 or whatever, but they'll have a date set and they'll make their bookings in the theaters to reserve for that movie. And so it doesn't matter what complications you meet along the way to reach that.
You have to get it done by then.
You still have to. So the end date kind of just becomes, it's called crunch, because it just happens. With so many people involved, you can't expect hyper efficiency.
Right.
You can't. Right. There's going to be problems that haven't been foreseen. Netflix whenever the movie's released, we'll put it on streaming. So they have an end date, but when COVID hit, they bumped the end date up a month, and then another month, and then
it's
more
like guidelines.
Yeah,
it's how
pirate code.
Yeah,
we will release the movie when it's good.
I like that.
Yeah,
that's a great model.
Yeah, and so I'm so happy now where I'm working. And
awesome,
great.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I love you, Netflix.
There you go.
There you go, Netflix right there. Check it out. Ultraman. Lord knows when it'll come out, but when it comes out, you can bet it'll be polished and delightful because of Mark Austin.
That's right. Exactly.
All right, man. Well,
we've taken up enough of your time.
That's right.
It's been awesome talking.
It really
to
has.
you.
It's been an absolute delight, Mark.
I would
Thank
love
you so
to talk to you for hours more, but
I could always come back.
Well, that would be amazing.
It's an open door, my friend.
Yeah.
You are Bantha Milk royalty, and you are welcome any day.
Okay, I'll be back.
So we have a running joke that Dave Filoni's always penciled in to be on the show, and he never makes it for some reason. But you might actually make it back for a second time.
Yeah.
So that'd be awesome.
Like I said, we hit the tip of the iceberg, really. There's a lot to talk about. So.
Sure. Oh yeah.
Well, if you have anything else that you just wanted to plug or any stuff coming out aside from Ultraman, this is your time. Otherwise, it's been a delight.
I'd love to plug my YouTube channel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure, yeah, go for it.
Nobody visits it.
Go for it.
But it's just Boba space Fett space capital ANHSE, New Hope Special Edition.
Okay.
Boba Fett ANHSE. YouTube channel.
YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Well, we will.
Check
you
them out.
You can even see found footage of the blue screen shoot from that December.
Oh,
6th
awesome!
On there.
Awesome.
All right, so check them out on YouTube. A New Hope, ANHSE. It took me a second to remember that. Boba Fett. Boba Fett, ANHSE. That's right, on YouTube. Mark Austin.
He's a music teacher. He's not too good with the letters and stuff. Yeah.
Well, there's no letter H. There's no note for H.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
You haven't seen it, but I've been refilling my Bantha milk here. So
Okay.
we make do with what we can. But Mark Austin, thank you so much for being here. It's been an absolute delight, my friend.
Yes, it has been. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very.
We're just going to do a little bit of Star Wars news real fast. You can leave. You can listen.
you
It's
can
up to you. Whatever you want to do. Don't feel obligated to stay. But thank you so much for coming, and hopefully we'll have you on again very soon. So
Thank you, Mark.
Okay.
Appreciate you. Take care.
All right. That was amazing, isn't it?
Anthony
I love this guy. He's awesome.
Yeah, that was something else. It really was.
He is. He's fine.
All right. So do you want to hit that Star Wars news? What do we got?
Yeah, I can't find the news thing, but whatever. We will just go right into the news because there's two things. One, Trey, my son, was telling me that the Star Wars theme park hotel is now booking.
Okay.
So you can now book the hotel. Now, I don't know if you know much about this. Maybe Mark knows about it because he's in the know. He's out there in Hollywood.
Sure.
But the Star Wars hotel, it's a 3-day excursion where you stay in the hotel for 3 days.
Okay.
Have all kinds of things. They can teach you how to play sabacc. You go to lightsaber training. You do this. You do that. As soon as you walk into the hotel,
It's an
you're
immersive
immersed in Star
experience,
Wars.
sure.
Yes. So you can't just go and leave and go to the park. You're there for 3 days. They have it broken down by the day and by the hour. Now, while they say it's 3 days, arrival time on day 1 is at 1 o'clock.
That's pretty late.
So it's pretty
You
late.
missed most of your day already.
Yeah. You're there for the full day on Tuesday, and then day 2, I'm sorry. And then day 3, you leave between launch pod to terminal between 9:30 and 10 in the morning.
That's less than 2 days.
So
I'm just putting
yes.
that out
So, but you're booked there for 2 nights, 3 days. You ready for the pricing?
there. No.
The let me get to the other picture. It's crazy. Of course, he doesn't send me that. Pricing, we'll just say this. For a family of 2, 3, or 4, it's basically going to come down to between $5,000 and $6,000
For 3 days.
for 3 days.
wow.
For depending on how many people it is, the more people you have, it's a little bit of a discount, but it still works out to being about the same thing, about $6,000
Man,
for 3 days.
I talk to my wife all the time about like going on a vacation, and we're big Star Wars fans, but like, can you imagine? Like that's a decent percentage of what I make per year.
Oh,
I'm gonna
yeah.
spend that on 3
For
out of
3
365
and it's not even a full 3
days.
days. It's like 50 hours basically total.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. So yeah. So I just wanted to put that out there. So if you have $6,000 laying around and you want to spend 3 days in a Disney hotel, you are more than welcome to do it. They do take you to Galaxy's Edge, and I think you might have like exclusive time in Galaxy's Edge, which is
Okay.
pretty cool. And then, but $6,000. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah,
you're
that's
gonna
a lot
have
of money.
people who pay it because you have people who just put stuff on their credit card and don't care. But I think that's ridiculous.
That's more than Red 5 cost. And by the way, I did drive Red 5. If you're a Bantha Milk diehard, you know that we named my motorcycle Red 5.
Oh,
And she's parked right outside right now. I did drive Red 5
Yes.
to Rob's house tonight.
and there is. We did have one complaint about that.
Okay, go on.
We had a fan, Brandon, who did put in a recommendation.
Chewbacca. I did see that. I apologize. So here's the problem with all our. We have so many different. We have our Instagram. We have the Facebook group, which is Sacred Jedi Texts. We have our Facebook page. So we sent this out to everything, and we got so many different responses in different places that I missed one. I saw it, but I didn't mention it on air. So I did see Chewbacca. It's a great one. But in the end, we did wind up going with Red 5.
Yes. So So
Sorry,
Brandon
Brandon.
was upset about that. And we didn't even mention it at all. So
Here
now
you are.
there's the
Here's
mention
your specific shout out,
specifically
Brandon.
to you, Brandon.
Chewbacca. The next motorcycle I get, maybe it'll be Chewbacca.
It'll be Chewbacca for the next one. So
But
Red 5 is
then the gas tank's gonna have all sorts of.
it's gonna be
ground fur and
furry,
stuff
yeah,
on
with
it,
the bandolier going
Yeah,
across
man.
it. And the other news that I have, Lucasfilm has hired a deepfake artist who fixed the CGI appearance of Luke Skywalker
I
in the
hope
most
so.
recent season of The
It
Mandalorian.
needs it.
So some fan, kind of like Mark, big fan,
Sure.
on his own went through and re-rendered it and updated it and changed the CGI and put it out on YouTube, and people fell in love with it, so much so that even ILM fell in love with it and hired him.
Great.
Now, can you imagine his first day at work being like,
Hey man, I saw what
Hey!
you did. It sucked. I made it better.
I almost fell out of my chair.
That's great.
Oh my
man.
God. He's like, yeah, I'm only here because you guys did such a
Yep.
crappy job of it
Yep.
that they had to bring me, an outsider, in.
That's right.
So I found that pretty funny.
There is also a little bit of video game news. Jedi Fallen Order. They released like a stock update for their shareholders,
Okay.
and it looks like they are working on some sort of sequel to Jedi Fallen Order.
Oh, awesome.
I don't know if it's going to be the same continuity, whether they're going to do Jedi Fallen Order or whether it's going to be Jedi something else, but it looks
Okay.
like there's another single player Star Wars adventure to come out on next gen consoles, probably Xbox One and PS5.
Awesome. That is very
So,
exciting.
something to think about. That was one of the best Star Wars video games put out in recent memory, so check it out. But yeah, I think are we Star Wars newsed out?
I think we are.
I mean, we had a
Star Wars newsed out.
whole
I think-
discussion with Mark Anthony Austin.
I
who
know
was
we had
an
so much.
awesome
We didn't even
dude.
get into our whole opening where we talk about where you can find us now that it's an hour in.
That's true.
So real fast, hit us up on Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook,
at Bantha Milk Podcast.
Bantha Milk Podcast. Instagram at Bantha Milk Podcast.
Yep. Twitter at Bantha Milk.
That's it. Right.
We were drinking once again. Nick had some bourbon over there.
Yep.
I once again had some Space Camper from Boulevard. Oh, there was one other thing. Darn it, I'm not even going to be able to find it now. But there was a beer in Florida, which I tried to find up here, but couldn't find it up here. They only have it in their, oops, I'm on the wrong Instagram account. They only have it in their brew house down in Orlando. So if you're in Orlando,
to all our Orlandian friends.
Yes, check out, of course, now I can't find it, darn it. Give me 1 second. Talk amongst yourselves over there, Nick. Entertain yourself.
So, did you hear the one about Luke Skywalker and the Tauntaun?
No, tell us.
Well, no, I don't have any punchline to this.
Tactical Brewing Company.
Tactical Brewery. Thank you for saving me.
Yes, Tactical Brewing Company has a beer with Admiral Akbar on it.
All right.
And it's called It's Untapped.
It's Untapped. All right.
Instead of It's a Trap. And it is I think it's an IPA. Tactical Brewing Apple Cobbler and Vanilla Ice Cream Porter.
Oh, a porter. All right.
Sour. I'm sorry. Apple Cobbler and Vanilla Ice Cream Sour.
Sour.
It's a sour. So if you're down in the Orlando area, go to Tactical Brewing, and it has Admiral Akbar on the cover. So look for Admiral Akbar, and it's Untapped. And I tried to get it, but it's only available down there. So if anybody's down in the Orlando area and wants to send us some, please feel free to do so.
That's right, to Bantha Milk headquarters.
Yes. All right. I think that's it. This was amazing. This was awesome.
Jam-packed episode of Bantha Milk Podcast. Mark Anthony Austin. Such a pleasure to have him on.
Yes.
Someone who is in the Star Wars zeitgeist. We're really stepping it up here.
We are stepping it up here.
We're upping our game.
We got Star Wars authors, now Star Wars editors, animators.
Just wait. Dave is going to be in any moment.
It's got to be Dave Filoni. It's got to be here next. It's the only way to go.
That's right. Only up from here.
Only up from here. That's right.
But yeah, it has been an absolute delight here at Bantha Milk headquarters, all the way in Sunday, New Jersey.
Yep.
I am Nick. This is Rob. And from all of us, we have spoken.
We have spoken.